In recent days, the Middle East has drawn global attention as Gaza's fragile ceasefire has offered a rare moment of respite amid long-standing conflict. In Kyiv, Ukraine's president seized on the development, suggesting that diplomacy from Washington may offer a model for resolving his country's own war with Russia. When peace is achieved for one part of the world, it brings more hope for peace in other regions, he wrote on social media, urging US intervention in Eastern Europe. Volodymyr Zelenskyy remains Ukraine's incumbent president, having first taken office on the 20th of May 2019. In a campaign message now echoing across continents, he tied the Gaza pause to renewed hope in Ukraine's protracted struggle. While ceasefire optimism emerged in the Middle East, analysts warn of dangerous trends along Europe's frontiers. In what the Institute for the Study of War, ISW, terms Phase Zero, Russia is deploying hybrid tactics, small stealth units, psychological warfare, and information operations as a backdrop to escalating tension with NATO. One flashpoint, the border region between Russia and Estonia. On 10th October, Tallinn temporarily closed a stretch of road passing through the Russian exclave of Sandala, the Satsibut region. The closure followed border guard reports of Russian servicemen in unmarked uniforms moving along the route between Vaska and Satsi. Estonian officials said the uniforms suggested the individuals were not border guards, while Moscow defended the movements as routine. The Estonian foreign minister acknowledged that Russian troops were behaving more visibly, but cautioned against overblown tensions. In situating this episode within broader trends, ISW flagged it as the first observed usage of little green men, unnamed military forces, by Russia in a direct proximity to NATO territory under a Phase Zero campaign framework. Western analysts interpret this as a shift, not an imminent invasion, but a preparatory posture, setting narratives, testing responses, and physiologically conditioning target populations. Such tactics may represent the Kremlin's effort to reframe future conflict in terms of legitimacy, provocation, and escalation control. The war in Ukraine, now approaching 4 years, continues to exact terrible human and material costs. Though front lines have stabilized in many sectors, the tempo of conflict has not slackened. In Odessa, firefighting crews toiled overnight after a drone strike damaged more than 5,000 square meters of textile warehouses and destroyed a vehicle. One person was wounded. The Russian Defense Ministry claimed over 70 Ukrainian drones were shot down in the prior 24 hours, while launching counterstrikes on 137 sites tied to fuel and energy infrastructure. Ukraine reported recapturing a village in Zaporizhzhia Oblast, aided by suspected US intelligence sharing that enabled deep strikes on Russian energy targets. Neither Kyiv nor Washington has publicly confirmed that intelligence link. Along the front, Ukrainian troops face increasingly lethal precision drone strikes. Hospitals, themselves under pressure, register wounds from micro-shrapnel and nail-embedded devices, complicating extraction and treatment of the injured. Some wounded remain frontline for days or weeks, underscoring the brutal adaptation of combat dynamics. In Kharkiv, misheard in the original, transcript as Kramatorsk, authorities have ordered evacuation of families from shelling-prone districts as fighting intensifies. Meanwhile, the strategic tone from Washington has shifted. Former US President Donald Trump declared that if Russian President Vladimir Putin declines a negotiated end to the war, the US might supply Ukraine with long-range Tomahawk missiles. Reportedly, that possibility has featured in discussions between Trump and Zelenskyy. The Kremlin, for its part, has warned that such deliveries would amount to direct US involvement in the war. Ukraine's foreign minister confirmed that more nations are expected to join a NATO-backed funding initiative dubbed the Prioritize Ukraine Requirements List, which coordinates allies' contributions and reallocates US arms stocks to Kyiv. So far, countries including the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Germany, and Canada have taken part. In this volatile environment, observers ask, can diplomacy still matter? Or is the conflict locked in a perpetual cycle of escalation?
Volodymyr Zelenskyy's decision to publicly link the Gaza ceasefire with Ukraine's own diplomatic prospects underscores his broader strategy, leveraging global momentum to break his own war's deadlock. By anchoring his message to a moment of cross-regional hope. When peace is achieved for one part of the world, it brings more hope for peace in other regions. Zelenskyy frames the Ukraine conflict not as isolated, but intimately tied to global stability. His calculation now hinges on the role of Donald Trump. Trump, whose White House return in 2025 has coincided with renewed engagement on Ukraine, is seen by Kyiv as a potential broker. Zelenskyy lauded Trump's Gaza mediation as a template while urging Washington to broker a Russia-Ukraine pact. According to political coverage, Trump and Zelenskyy are set to meet this week in Washington, focusing on long-range weapons and continued U.S. backing. Trump's rhetorical shift has been dramatic. After meeting Zelenskyy at the United Nations in September, he reversed earlier hesitancy and declared Ukraine can retake all lost territory, a stark pivot from caution to encouragement. In a broader strategic recalibration, Germany, under new leadership, agreed with Ukraine to jointly develop longer-range missile systems, a sign that European partners are increasingly sharing Kyiv's urgency. Observers note, though, that Putin shows no obvious willingness to negotiate ceasefires or peace deals in the near term. Chancellor Merz recently argued that Moscow lacks an incentive to pause fighting on favorable battlefield terms. In the meantime, Zelenskyy continues to press global forums and alliances, urging security guarantees from the West and pushing for greater coordination of arms support, with the hope that a multipolar peace moment might converge on Ukraine. Russia's transition into hybrid Phase Zero operations blurs lines between peace and confrontation, placing extra burdens on NATO states to discern and respond to subtle provocations. Estonia's recent border closure reflects this dilemma. What triggers a response when uniforms are absent and claims are opaque? Zelensky's leap into global peace narratives suggests a new front: diplomacy as public pressure. By associating Ukraine's fight with other conflicts, he seeks to shift public opinion and compel powerful actors, particularly the U.S., to act with more audacity. The restructuring of arms funding, e.g. the Prioritize Ukraine list, underscores the need for allied coordination, but also exposes vulnerabilities if any donor state wavers or withdraws. If weapons like Tomahawk missiles are delivered and used, Russia may interpret that as direct U.S. involvement, pushing the conflict toward a wider war. Moscow has already issued such warnings. With both sides digging in, the war looks set for protracted attrition. Yet with newer technologies, drones, precision weapons, battlefield asymmetries may grow faster than either side anticipates. As Gaza settles into a tenuous calm, the war in Ukraine rages onward. Zelensky's message, that peace in one region could inspire peace elsewhere, rings with rhetorical power. Whether that logic holds in practice will depend on strategic decisions made in capitals, and whether global momentum can be transformed into concrete leverage for Ukraine. But for now, the war is not stopping. Russia continues to test boundaries, Ukraine fights for every meter, and the balance may yet pivot on whether diplomacy can keep pace with militarized escalation.